Hey there, it's Boots Owen here. This is my AirProducts Oxy-Acetylene setup. It's an Integra cylinder system, so the gauges, the regulator gauges, are part of the bottle. And that works fine. If I go back here to the acetylene, where you can see that the needle's now pointing at 4 psi, which is where I would want it for welding. But over here on the oxygen, the needle goes all the way up to 360. So wherever 4 or 5 or 2 or anything under 10, like if that's 40, that black line, then that one's 20, then somewhere between 0 and something is 4. So what I've been doing so far, and I've posted this in other videos, is just listening to it and adjusting the pressure on the acetylene and then listening to adjust the pressure on the oxygen, which is nonsense because that's not how you should be doing it at all. But that's just what I was doing. So if I turn it up now, that's what 4 psi sounds like from the acetylene. And you know, you've got to dial it in from there. So I did a bit of research on this and contacted AirProducts and said, you know, what's the story with this? What are you meant to do? And the answer they came back with was, nobody's ever told us that before. And they looked it up and they were able to get a photo of an original cylinder from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago when these things came out. And it had a much smaller range on the gauge. Now, it wasn't quite as small as the acetylene, but it was at least half, or maybe a third. And with that, it meant you could dial it in quite comfortably. But because this is normally left to the customer and, you know, could be open to any kind of abuse and, you know, rough handling, these regulators probably got damaged if they were only going up part way. And, you know, if you opened up a 300, what is it set up to there? 360 psi, and in theory there could be 5,800 psi in this tank if it's full. Maybe not that full, but it should be up to something like, what does it say on it? It goes up to 300 bar there, so the gauge will go up to 400 bar. The regulator's not able to take it if it was opened up fully, probably, is what I reckon happened. What I'm going to do is see if I can put a gauge in line after the flashback arrestor, which is, I could say it's not recommended, but nobody's recommended it to me, but then nobody has a solution for me either. So I'm going to see if that works. So in at the bench, and here's an old oxygen regulator. This is one that goes straight onto a tank, a regular kind of tank. It says on the back, if you can see, replace 2012, so it's already 9 years past its date. I've loosened this one off, and here's the oxygen gauge. Drop it on the floor. There's the bottle gauge, and this one goes up to 400, whereas the one outside went up to, I don't know, what was it, 5,000 or something psi. No, that's bar, 400 psi, so well, yeah, it's about the same. It's about the same there. But this one, however, goes from 0 up to 1, 2, 3 bar. So it's already a way smaller range. Now, I don't know why the needle's stuck there at that pressure, but we'll see if it works anyways. So my plan was to take this here. This is the Integra flashback arrestor, that quick coupler that couples onto the bottle. Take this apart here, put in a T, and then T this in here with the reducer. So after a bit of PTFE tape and a bit of screwing together, this is what I've wound up with. So it's the same as it was before basically, but it's got a T off to a pressure gauge, and it's an oxygen pressure gauge. I'm not sure if there's a difference between oxygen and air pressure gauges, for instance. I think you can't, with an oxygen gauge, you absolutely can't have oil anywhere near it because oil can spontaneously combust in the presence of oxygen. But apart from that, I don't know if there's any difference between these gauges and other gauges. This one is a particularly cheap and chintzy safety gauge, so I don't know really, but I can't find them for sale anywhere, so that's why I just took it off this thing, which is really not fit for use anyways and should just be recycled. Let's plug it in and see if we die a untimely death. Okay, so I've got it all coupled together. I've not attached the acetylene, so I'm not doing any leak tests yet. I'm not going to use it yet, I just want to see if this is working. It's on. The valve on the back of the cylinder is open, and the valve here is open. I'll just open it up full and we'll just listen to it hissing. So keep an eye on this gauge here and this gauge here. Now this one I think is dead because it's sticking halfway along the weld line there. I'm going to get that to focus, but you can see it clear enough anyways, the black line. So here's my, you can't see it, it's just here is my adjuster, my adjusting knob, and if I screw that in gently, you'll hear it begin to hiss. And you can see it jumps up here on this gauge here. So it's still in the weld zone, and that's probably about what I would have welded with before. Now it recommends, I think, anywhere between 0.15 bar, this is in bar, and you know, a little bit more. But so, okay, so while we're watching this gauge here, we're at the top of weld, this hasn't come off 0. Let's go up a bit more to 1 bar. Again, over here is still at 0. Bar and a half. This needle even moving over here. There, it just popped up, so 1.6 bar. It's starting to move, and if I go up to 2 bar, I won't stop there, I don't want to blow up that thing. At 2 bar, it could be any man's guess here. It could say 20, 15, 10. It's just bloody useless. Now, I'm not saying that. I'll turn it off again. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't go too high. Turn it off the wrong way. You see the way that's just kind of jumping back. The spring is kind of dead and that. It's kind of hovering there. So I could probably get a new one of these. The cheapest thing is probably just to buy a full regulator like the one I showed you inside, and just take the gauge off it, because they're about 20 quid. I don't know if I can get a gauge on its own. I don't seem to be able to find one, and in terms of shipping and everything else, it's probably not that easy to do. But I think this might be a solution, you know. It might just be a solution for what I'm after, if I can get a better gauge. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So that's really all there is to it. That's the flashback arrestor and coupler, a T-piece, a reducer, the gauge itself, and then just some connector to fit it on here. It is what it is. It seems to work. It seems to work alright even just like that. This is my kind of second set. It's my old set. So, you know, for general work, it's probably fine. It's probably, you know, I want it for precision work really, so I'm going to probably buy a new set of these bits and make up a better one for my usual welding set. That's it. Any questions or comments, leave them below. Any observations about safety or why this is a bad idea, let me know, because, you know, gas is gas. Thanks for watching. See you later.